Mega Man 7 is a game which encompasses the concept of bad timing. It was released in late 1995 in North America, a fine time for any well-polished Super Nintendo game like its contemporaries Secret of Evermore, Donkey Kong Country 2, and Yoshi's Island. But in the context of the Mega Man franchise itself, a disaster. Mega Man 6 had been released incredibly late in the NES's lifespan, and it took almost 2 years for this, the next classic game, to be made. By that time, Mega Man X had smashed into the scene, revolutionizing the series for a new era of high-speed, high-action gaming, and obsoleted the slow, deliberate pace of its predecessors in the minds of many players. Then Mega Man X2 came out. Then, finally, Mega Man 7. And again, because of bad timing, now internally at Capcom, it had an absolutely insane development time of only 3 months. So strike what I just said about well-polished SNES games. In other bad timing notes, it has been 6.5 years since I LP'd Mega Man 6, but that's neither here nor there, isn't it? Despite all these circumstances saddling it, Mega Man 7 is not a bad game. It could and should have been more. A bigger leap in technology, a grander vision, a bold step into the future for the classic series, and a statement proving that you can have both it and the X games' speed coexisting. But you know what? It's still fun as hell to play. And that over 20 years later is all we need, because the context of the time does not actually matter anymore. I have a special fondness for Mega Man 7. I've spoken before about not having any true nostalgia for the Mega Man series because I had never played any of them as a child, only discovering them through internet word of mouth in my late teens. That is not entirely true though. I did experience Mega Man 7 at a friend's house where he showed me a stage or two and I could play it for a bit. I never saw the game again after that day until I tried them all out as an adult, and when I opened Mega Man 7 all the memories came rushing back to me. It was this game I had seen back then and I still remembered everything. At the time it seemed impossibly hard but impossibly cool to me. Shooting, jumping, sliding, that was enough action for me to be impressed. And even back then, the idea of taking a boss's weapon and now suddenly being able to attack in a completely different way was amazing. Of course, looking back and with all the experience I have with the other games, this is quaint. But I wanted to include this personal episode because these feelings a game can evoke on your childhood do matter, because they were designed to appeal to children of that age and that era, and for once I can comment on that as well, instead of just the level design. The lead developers of Mega Man 7 claim that despite the short time allotted for it, the team still had fun doing it. It's easy to say that for someone who doesn't actually have to do all the coding themselves, but I'm willing to entertain the thought because the game is absolutely a labor of love, example shown here. It is colorful, charming, and sounds amazing. The soundtrack, one of my favorites, was composed by 10 different people but supervised by Ippo Yamada, who would later compose the outstanding soundtracks for the Zero games and more recently Bloodstained: Curse of the Moon. This game also marks the departure of Keiji Inafune from being the head illustrator, a job now taken over by Hayato Kaji. The new characters' auto, bass and treble were still designed by Inafune though, but the latter two only in sketch form. One advantage this game's late showing has is that it could draw inspiration from many sources. It is the first classic game with an intro stage, what you're seeing set up right now, like the X games, and structurally it is very similar to the Game Boy games. In fact, with 2 sets of 4 bosses, a shop and the big sprite sizes in comparison to the rest of the screen, this is more of a spiritual successor to the handheld classic entries, and those were stellar. Oh yeah, there's a story happening, is there? As usual, I don't care. There is nothing interesting here. After 4 games, they finally got rid of the road "it was Wily all along" twist, only to replace it with the most obvious basis bad guy who could have seen that coming twist. Spoilers, I guess. Though obviously the presentation is a huge step up from the 8-bit days. And this level actually picks up directly from the intro cutscene's destruction, which is nice. It's not bad. I just don't care for it. So, gameplay. Jumping and shooting work just as well in 16 bits but with more animation frames. The charge buster is also back, but in this game it's severely nerfed. Only deals twice as much damage as a normal pellet, so the AoE is its only advantage and it takes forever to charge as well. Not a fan, but what can you do? Sliding is of course also in, and after MM6 fucked it up, I'm very happy to report that you can jump out of a slide now. This guy here is rather complicated for the first enemy you encounter, but it's probably just preparing you for what's to come. Sometimes you just have to pay a little attention on what you want to shoot. In fact, if you shoot out its treads, then it becomes pretty fucking dangerous, but if you only hit the head, then everything is fine. And it proves again that I am insanely bad at managing my jump and shoot height. But what can you do? I will never learn at this point. I really like that we saw this guy demolish everything which we see demolished in the background in the intro, and now we can actually fight him. He used to be a little bigger though, but whatever. To dodge his amazing head attack you have to stay close to him, which is a bit unintuitive I think, and otherwise you have to go away so he doesn't run you over, but not at all that difficult. I pretty much suck at this guy because you don't have to try. I like that you can see visible damage as you shoot him, but that's the last time that happens for an enemy in this game. It's probably something they wanted to do more with, but they ran out of time. A ruined highway stage with dangerous pits. Ah, nah, that doesn't remind us of anything. One thing this intro stage also borrows from Mega Man X's admittedly much superior one is the rival fight at the end. Contrary to Vile, Base here is much more set up to be a mysterious stranger akin to Breakman, to try and make the weak twist later work. It's fine though, because this pathetic show makes the later duel work better. Personally, I'm not a huge fan of Base. I think he's trying too hard. Maybe he just needed a hug? That makes absolutely no sense. Where was Mega Man gone and what did they do to try and stop Wily? It's like Mega Man is like, oh, obviously he's working for us because he did so much already? I don't know. It's just like someone can just walk up to Mega Man and say, I'm a good guy by the way, and Mega Man is clearly, people would never lie. Anyway, obviously they lost deliberately. But what happens if you win? It's pretty hard. What you have to do is just stand there and shoot, and this is probably a little bit too much for most people. But this is not meant to be hard, of course. But it's interesting that they program different outcomes. And either way you can't lose, obviously, but that's not the point of this. After all, you already had a boss which could conceivably kill you. And from here on out the dialogue is the same, of course, except for some tidbits like that. Goodbye, Treble. And there is one more wrinkle to that fight. What if you don't do anything? Oh, best the dodger. You know, I really don't like that they still cling to a password system, but, well, the X games do as well. Alright, hope you're as pumped as I am to choose one of these 4 initial bosses again, get their weapons and have some good fun. This is Simon with Let's Play Mega Man 7 and thank you very much for your attention.
Actually, hold your horses 2018 Simon. This is 2024 Simon speaking, and you forgot something that I think a lot of people do. If you press select on the level select screen, you actually go to the shop. Wow, they made a whole design and animation for it and everything. And here we learn a bit more about what the deal with Otto is, who carted us around in the intro without any setup, Dr. Light's #1 student. But he is kind of useless because he literally has a screw loose or a bolt missing. That's going to be important later on, because if we find that, and we will of course, if I didn't explain it here, then you would have no idea what it is. So here goes. What can we buy? 1-up, pass. E-can, E-tank, sure, that's fine. W-tank, for some reason more expensive. Exit unit, really expensive for a quality of life upgrade, but maybe there is a way to get around of it. And here is Beat's whistle. Let's try and buy it. Yes? Oh, That also sets up something later on. Boy, aren't we glad that I went into the shop even though usually you don't actually have a reason to in Mega Man 7? You'll see why later, stay tuned!